The pen slipped from her fingers and clattered against the polished conference table just as he said it. She's beautiful, but I bet she doesn't understand a single word I'm saying. Silence didn't follow, at least not for anyone else in the room. The Korean delegation kept talking, papers shuffled, chairs creaked softly, air conditioners hummed above their heads in the Abuja heat. But inside her, everything went still. Adebimpe Adeyemi bent slightly, picked up her pen, and straightened her back with the same calm professionalism she had perfected over years. Her face remained neutral, her eyes steady. Her voice, when she spoke again into the microphone, carried no tremor. Mr. Han says he is pleased with the reception and looks forward to productive discussions. She did not translate what he had just said about her. Across the table, Han Jisoo leaned back in his chair, completely unaware that the woman sitting less than 2 meters away had understood every syllable of his Korean. And worse, every intention behind it. Adebimpe had been warned about men like him. Arrogant, brilliant, dangerous in the quiet, calculating way that didn't require raised voices. Men who believed intelligence gave them permission to be careless with other people's dignity. Still, nothing in the briefing prepared her for the way Hanjisu looked at her the first time their eyes met. Not crude, not even openly appraising, just curious, like she was a puzzle he might enjoy solving if he ever got bored enough. Miss Adeyemi, her supervisor had said that morning, just outside the glass doors of the conference room, you'll be interpreting for the Korean lead, Mr. Han. He prefers Korean during negotiations. You'll provide simultaneous translation into English. She nodded. Understood. You've handled Mandarin, French, Arabic. This should be straightforward. Adebimpa allowed herself a small smile. Yes, sir. What she didn't say was that Korean wasn't just another language she'd picked up academically. She had lived in Seoul for 3 years. She had cried in that language, dreamed in it, loved once in it. And now, apparently, she would sit across from a man who assumed she was deaf to it. The first day had started innocently enough. Polite introductions, firm handshakes, business smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes, the usual dance of power disguised as courtesy. Han Jisu spoke in Korean immediately. Let's see how this goes, he said under his breath, glancing briefly at her. She translated smoothly, her tone professional, precise. He didn't react at first. Why would he? But then came the first slip. She speaks well, he murmured in Korean to his colleague, not even bothering to lower his voice much. Her accent is good, but she probably memorized everything. Adebimpa's fingers tightened slightly around her pen. She translated the official part of his speech flawlessly. She ignored the rest. Across the table, the Nigerian officials nodded, unaware of the undercurrent. The second slip came 10 minutes later. I wonder if she knows how distracting she is, he added casually, his gaze flickering to her again before returning to his documents. Her heartbeat stuttered, but her voice didn't. Mr. Han is requesting clarification on Clause 4 regarding local partnership obligations. No one noticed, except him. He glanced at her, just briefly, a flicker, almost nothing. But she caught it, and she knew. He was testing something. By the end of the first hour, Adebimpe realized this wasn't accidental. He was deliberately speaking freely in Korean between official statements, not translating them, not hiding them either, just letting them exist. Like private commentary in a room he believed only he controlled. Her posture is too rigid, he said once. She looks like she doesn't laugh another time. She would probably be difficult to impress. Each sentence landed like a quiet tap against her composure, not enough to break it, but enough to make her aware of every inch of her own body. Still, she said nothing. She translated everything that mattered, and nothing that didn't. That night, she sat alone in her apartment in Abuja, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Why does it bother you? She asked herself softly. She had dealt with worse, far worse. Men who underestimated her, men who dismissed her, men who tried to test her intelligence in rooms where they thought they held all the power. So why him? Why did his words linger? She exhaled slowly. Because he's not careless, she realized. That was the problem. He wasn't crude. He wasn't loud. He was observant, accurate, and dangerously close to seeing her in ways she wasn't ready for, even if he didn't realize she could hear him. Day 2 began with rain, heavy, relentless Abuja rain that blurred the city outside the conference windows and filled the room with the soft percussion of water against glass. Adebimpe arrived early. So did he. He was already seated when she walked in, jacket off, sleeves rolled up slightly, scanning through a document. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he looked up. Their eyes met. Something shifted. Not recognition. Not yet. But something. "Good morning," she said in English. "Good morning," he replied, equally neutral. But as she took her seat, he added, quietly in Korean, "She looks different today." Her breath caught. "She looks softer." Adebimpe adjusted her headset. "Shall we begin?" she said aloud. The negotiations intensified. Numbers, percentages, legal frameworks. Voices rose, not in anger, but in insistence. And through it all, Adebimpe remained the bridge. Precise. Calm. Invisible. Except to him, because he kept talking. "Do you think she's married?" "She doesn't wear a ring. She avoids eye contact when I look too long." Each observation was sharper than the last, each one more personal, and each one chipped away at the careful wall she had built between herself and the room. At one point, he leaned closer to his colleague and said almost absently, "I think she understands more than she shows." Her hand froze mid-note, just for a second. Then she continued writing. He watched her, and for the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. By midday, the tension had changed. It was no longer just business. It was awareness, a subtle, dangerous awareness that hummed beneath every exchange. When he spoke officially, she translated. When he drifted into Korean, she listened, and when their eyes met, neither of them looked away as quickly as they should have. "Careful," he said once in Korean, his voice low, "or I might start saying things I shouldn't." Adebimp swallowed, and for the first time, she almost responded. But she didn't. Not yet. That evening, the delegation attended a formal dinner. Soft lights, crystal glasses, low music. Adebimpe wore a deep green dress that caught the light with every movement. She hadn't planned it, but when she walked into the room, she felt his gaze before she saw it. "He's staring." One of the Nigerian officials whispered jokingly. She smiled politely. Across the room, Hanji-su said, in Korean, "She's dangerous." Her chest tightened. "Why?" his colleague asked. "Because she knows exactly what she's doing." Adebimpe lifted her glass, took a slow sip, and said nothing. The third day broke something open. It started small, a disagreement over a clause, voices sharper, more direct. Hanji-su leaned forward, speaking rapidly in Korean. Adebimpe translated, her voice steady despite the pace. Then he stopped, looked directly at her, and said, clearly, deliberately in Korean, "If you understand me, don't translate this." The room went quiet. Every eye turned to her, because even though they didn't understand the words, they understood the pause, the shift, the moment. Adebimpe met his gaze. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain it would echo through the microphone. This was it. The line. The edge. She could step back, pretend, maintain the illusion, or she inhaled slowly, and for the first time in 3 days, she spoke in Korean. Flawless, fluid, unmistakable. "I understand everything you've said since the first minute you walked into this room." Silence crashed over the table. Absolute. Total. His expression didn't change immediately, but his eyes gave him away. Shock. Sharp. Immediate. Real. "You," he started, still in Korean. She didn't let him finish. "You assumed I couldn't," she continued, her voice calm but carrying a weight that filled the room. "So you said everything freely." A pause, then softer. "And you were right about one thing." His gaze locked onto hers. "What?" he asked quietly. She held his eyes, unflinching. "I do understand more than I show." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then she switched back to English. Professional, composed. "Mr. Han would like to revisit Clause 7. The room exhaled. The meeting resumed, but nothing was the same. After the session ended, he found her. Of course he did. The corridor outside was empty, the hum of distant conversations fading behind closed doors. Adebimpe, her name in his voice sounded different, less certain. She turned slowly. "Yes, Mr. Han?" He stepped closer. Not too close, but close enough. "You understood everything?" She tilted her head slightly. Every word. A flicker of something crossed his face. Regret? Embarrassment? Something deeper? "I didn't mean to." "You meant every word," she interrupted gently. He went quiet, because they both knew it was true. After a moment, he exhaled. "I thought you were just the interpreter. And you were wrong." A beat. Then unexpectedly he smiled. Not arrogantly, not playfully, just honestly. "I was." What followed wasn't an apology. Not exactly. It was something more complicated, more honest. "I said things I shouldn't have," he admitted. "Yes. I also said things I meant. I know. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" he asked. She considered that, then answered simply, "Because I wanted to hear the truth." His breath caught. "And now that you have," Adebimpe held his gaze. Now that she had heard his assumptions, his observations, his quiet, unguarded thoughts about her, now that she had seen the man behind the polished executive facade, she smiled just slightly. "Now," she said softly, "we start over." But starting over wasn't simple, because now he was careful, too careful. Every word measured, every glance controlled, and somehow that was worse. "I prefer it when you're honest," she told him later that day when they found themselves alone again. He frowned slightly. "Honest or careless?" "Honest," she repeated. A pause, then quietly in Korean, "Then I think you're distracting." Her lips curved. "Better." The final agreement was signed that evening. Cameras flashed, hands shook, smiles returned. To everyone else, it was just another successful negotiation. But for them, it was something else entirely. As the room emptied, he turned to her one last time. "So," he said, "what happens now?" Adebimpe adjusted her bag over her shoulder, met his eyes, and this time there was no barrier, no language between them, just truth. "That depends," she said softly. "On what?" She stepped closer, just enough. "On what you're brave enough to say," she replied, in his own language, and for the first time, he had no doubt she would understand every word.